let me read you a quote of yours. So you said after 2021, after the 2021 U.S. Olympic team trials, I made a post on my social media saying that I'm not going to miss another USA team for the rest of my career. I truly believed it, and I still believe that to be the case. And since I did that post, I have not missed a team yet. So it has worked out. This kind of ties back to this whole idea of manifestation. And I've talked to a lot of athletes on this podcast about it. I've read a lot about it. I listen to other people talk about it. George Mumford, if you're familiar with his work, talks about this a ton. He's worked with MJ, with Kobe, just getting their psyche in a good state. He believes in meditation and manifestation and all this stuff. And it's like one of those words that I feel like most people hear thrown out and they'll read about it, but don't necessarily know exactly what it means and then how to practice it. From your perspective, that social media post and everything that has come since then, is that an example of manifestation that you did? And then if you could just give us some practical tips on how we could maybe implement manifestation with some of our own goals.
So when I did that, I didn't think about it like manifestation. I thought of it almost, and I mean, this could fall into the category of manifestation, but I thought of more of a category of like calling your own shot. I'm going to put this out there as a way to like help hold me accountable. So when like I'm going through a hard season or a hard training block or have a down period, remembering being like, hey, I have this post out there, especially now as a pro, knowing that there are people out there just waiting for me to miss a team so they can reshare that post and be like, oh, what happened? I thought you were going to miss one for the rest of your career. So for me, it was almost more so like calling my shot, having that confidence in myself, and a way to hold yourself accountable. I think it goes in hand with manifestation in terms of like vocalizing your goal, actually saying it out loud to another person. Now, obviously, I didn't say it out loud per se, but I put it out there for countless people to see. And that's something that's kind of like helped me keep going and to get through those hard moments, being like, I made this goal, this commitment to myself and to everybody. Like, I didn't say I'm going to only miss a couple teams or I'm going to make most of the teams. I said, no, I'm going to make every single team that I compete for, that I compete at those championships. And that's a tough goal given that I'm competing for the United States and that it's really cutthroat to try to make teams, especially this past Olympic team. So I think for me, in terms of like daily tips, one thing I did, I'm a big fan of visualization, big fan of like putting on noise canceling headphones. I'll throw on like some film score music and I'll just like visualize my race. Um, I don't know. I'm sure there are ways you can use that in like day to day, but it's just kind of visualizing going through the race, different scenarios that can happen. But no matter what, it always ends how I want it to end. So I might visualize myself kind of being behind after 150, but I always get home and win. Or I start out fast and then people kind of come up on me late. So there's visualization. And yeah, I just think vocalizing it for the Olympic trials every day. I started brushing my teeth with my left hand that I picked up from. They talked about it on during the college football playoff with JJ McCarthy. So I started brushing my teeth with my left hand while saying out loud various phrases of like, I'm going to make the Olympic team. I'm a top 3 hurdler in the world and the United States. I'm going to execute this part of my race and stuff like that. So I just think verbalizing, having people to hold you accountable. It doesn't matter how scary your goal is. If you can tell like 1 or 2 people that you know you can trust, that's just going to help you because you're going to have a moment, whether it's a physical goal with like working out or even like a financial goal, like saving money. If you have someone text you and they say, hey, have you spent money on going out to eat? And you're like, yeah, I kind of have. Then they can hold you accountable. But if you have these bigger goals that nobody knows about, you can kind of let yourself off the hook.
What was the left hand? JJ McCarthy used to brush his teeth with his left hand?
So yeah, so they talked about it during the broadcast, and it's if you brush your teeth with your non-dominant hand while like saying phrases of affirmation, words of affirmation, it can help like rewire your brain and how your brain thinks. So like Michigan lost, I think the year before. I think that was the year they lost to TCU, and he like didn't have a good game. And they said like for the rest of the year leading up to last year's national championship, that he would always like say like I'm going to be a national champion, or I'm going to prepare like a national champion today, and things of that nature, while brushing with a non-dominant hand. So it kind of rewires how your brain works. So it might help you feel more confident or less nervous in those big moments.
Well, I am going to start brushing my teeth with my left hand. And
I got really good at it. I was at the
so,
trials for 2 weeks. I did it every day
yeah,
for 2 weeks, to the point where after the Olympic trials, when I switched back, it felt weird for a little bit.
it's like your left hand is now your dominant hand. So you had to go
Yeah.
back to your right.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So let me tell a story and then I'll follow it up with a question. So I
Okay.
read about Michael Phelps, I think I want to say it was '08 in Beijing, or it was 2012 in London. It might be 2012 in London. I'm forgetting which one, but he was competing obviously in the Olympics. He dives off the board. Midway through the race, his goggles break. He's completely blind. And he still managed to finish first. And he talks about how after the race, he was pissed that his goggles broke because he think he would have set a world record had they not.
Mm-hmm.
But he still finished first overall in the race, which just speaks to the competitor that Phelps was. But he talked about afterward how he was completely prepared for that scenario because it's something that he practiced almost every
Mm-hmm.
time he got into the pool. He was like, okay, well, I need to prepare. If my goggles do break, I need to know what's going to happen. And he would count his strokes so that he knew exactly how many strokes it would take him to get across the pool. And so like if he was completely blind underwater, like it was no issue for him. And I thought
Mm-hmm.
that story, first of all, insane. Second of all, really telling to the power of practice and just doing something over and over and over to the point where it's just muscle memory. Do you do anything similar? And then on top of that, just the importance of practice. We always talk about, I mean, Allen Iverson has that quote, we're talking about practice, but everybody talks about how important practice is, but can you just expand and really give us a sense of the true importance of practice?
Yeah. I mean, there's a quote that I've heard that I remind myself of like every time, especially going into a big race. And it's you don't rise to the level of the competition, you fall to the level of your training. So everyone likes to think that like great athletes in these big moments, they're like, oh, they're rising to the occasion. They're like stepping up their game. And it's like, no, they're not. They're falling back to the level of the training that they've been doing. And then they mix it obviously with the mental part to make sure they're fully ready. So I think, yeah, like the Michael Phelps scenario of like practicing it every day, because like it's not very likely, but it is likely. I think it's interesting though, because you also have the scenario where when Peyton Manning played for the Colts, there was a training camp practice where like this reporter was watching. He said, "Hey, why is the backup quarterback not getting any reps?" And the coach looked at him, and I'm going to curse, so pardon my French here. And the coach looks at him and goes, if Peyton Manning goes down, we're fucked. And we don't practice fucked here. So like there's obviously that level to it also where like that like you can swim without goggles, but there are certain scenarios where it's like if you end up in this spot, it's over. So we're not gonna like we don't practice me getting up after falling over a hurdle. Because if I fall on a hurdle, it's over. Like it's done. You don't have to mess with it. But in terms of like Michael Phelps goggles breaking could be the equivalent of like my block slipping, which I mean we don't practice that, but it's because it's dangerous. But it's also something where it's like you could still be in it, so you like your fight or flight kicks in and you take over. So I mean practice is everything. It really is everything. That quote, you don't rise to the occasion, you fall to the level of your training. It's a big misconception people have. I think until you get to this like bigger stage, like even the example of Noah Lyles in the 100 this past year at the Olympics, he did not have a great first two rounds. Nobody really thought he was going to win going into the last round. But people are like, oh, he rose to the occasion. It's like, no, he didn't. He's ran faster than that time before. He just fell to the level of his training. He knew he was ready for that moment physically and mentally, and he was able to make it happen.
I always think about Steph Curry was on JJ Redick's podcast before JJ Redick became a head coach, and they were talking about, I don't know if I'm sure you've seen it. He had that one crazy play against the Clippers where he dribbled between like four guys
Through
and shot at three. Yeah, just wild. I mean, for those listening, if you haven't seen that play, please do yourself like just literally look up Steph Curry Clippers insane shot. It'll pop up. And they were talking about that, and Steph was saying, "Oh yeah, like I practice that all the time." And he was like, anything that I do in a game, like I've practiced thousands of times. Like nothing is new during, like I don't try anything new. I just do everything that I've always practiced. And then he went on to talk about this idea of a flow state, which I've started looking into a lot more. Do you, I guess first of all, from your vantage point, what is this flow state that athletes often bring up, and have you experienced that?
Yes, I have. I think flow state is essentially this zone that people get into. I'm just going to say athletes for the sake of the conversation, that like athletes will get into where like there's nothing going on. Like anything out externally, internally, nothing's bothering. They're just fully in the moment. And I think flow state looks different for different people also, because there are some athletes that go into flow state and they're like, I couldn't tell you what happened. Like they just don't remember any of it. Then there's other athletes, which I think I fall into this category, where they're in the flow state. They're so focused and locked in that they can remember some of it. But it's just something where I don't know how to describe it. But you know it when you feel it. Like you'll look back on a moment and be like, yeah, like I was in flow state there.